potentially divisive at the same time. We passed a federal law in 2021 or two, I think it was, actually making lynching a hate crime here in the United States. Nooses are directly associated with lynching, so I don't know how you can have a potentially divisive symbol of a noose and have lynching be a federal hate crime in the United States. So you may not be the person, but you're here, and so I'm asking, like, how can you square the circle for us? I appreciate what Commandant Lundy said.
This may look like another policy debate inside a congressional committee, but it's actually a test of whether U.S. institutions can clearly define what they stand for. What's really being tested here is whether leadership will defend neutrality or take an unambiguous stand when confronted with symbols tied to hate and historical trauma. This raises broader questions about institutional trust, moral clarity, and the responsibility of federal agencies to reflect national values in both action and language. In this video, we'll break down how this exchange forces the Coast Guard to confront not just policy language, but the deeper issue of what leadership courage looks like inside American democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As usual, I will defer to Committee Ranking Member Mr. Larsen.
Thank you, Mr. Carwell. So I gave you a forewarning in my opening, and it just was reported as well that the policy defining nooses and swastikas as potentially divisive has gone into effect, actually. And I know the Commandant has said that these are prohibited. I don't understand how it can be prohibited and potentially divisive at the same time. We passed a federal law in 2021 or two, I think it was, actually making lynching a hate crime here in the United States. Nooses are directly associated with lynching, so I don't know how you can have a potentially divisive symbol of a noose and have lynching be a federal hate crime in the United States. So you may not be the person, but you're here, and so I'm asking, like, how can you...
What we just saw wasn't confusion. It was a demand for moral certainty inside a federal institution. This matters because when policy language softens what society has already defined as unacceptable, it risks normalizing what must remain condemned. And if leadership doesn't correct that immediately, it opens the door to future conflicts, legal challenges, and a weakening of public trust.
Square the circle for us. I appreciate what Commandant Lundy said and showed us November 20th or whatever day we met with him about the language that is operative as far as he goes, but the policy says something totally different.
Ranking Member, just to be perfectly clear, the Coast Guard has not, we do not now, and we won't tolerate any hate symbols within the Coast Guard. Our personnel work too hard. We have too many missions to complete. To the extent that instruction has been misinterpreted or is open to misinterpretation, the Commandant looked to close that gap by issuing a lawful general order, which oversteps any of the policy, and if anything fails at the unit level.
So get rid of the policy.
This moment highlights a crucial reality. Intent is meaningless without precision. Federal agencies don't just enforce rules, they set cultural expectations. When language allows wiggle room, it invites excuses. This leads to a future where enforcement only happens after damage is done, instead of preventing harm in the first place.
Or make the policy very clear what swastikas and nooses are. I want to get into swastikas. I don't like, it's horrible.
No, Ranking Member, we agree. And for for our operators, for the field level, for our Coast Guard men and women, that the policy is clear and it's unambiguous. And the lawful order gives all of our unit commanders and our personnel all the tools that they need.
The only way to test this is if there's a coastie that does something to potentially violate it, right? Unfortunately, and then you are stuck enforcing it. And I want you to enforce it, but it's either potentially divisive.
Here, Congress isn't asking for reassurance. It's demanding written accountability. This matters because leadership statements come and go, but policy survives leaders. If institutional language doesn't reflect the nation's standards, it creates a dangerous precedent where values become optional. The outcome determines whether the Coast Guard chooses clarity or comfort.
Or it's hateful, a hateful symbol. And then you'll have to decide. I've already decided. And you all need to decide to change the policy, because these are not potentially divisive. They are divisive. In fact, they're worse. They're hateful.
This is where the stakes become unmistakable. When elected officials draw firm ethical boundaries, it challenges agencies to match that conviction with policy action. This leads to a critical test. Will the Coast Guard rewrite its policy to align with national law and moral reality, or allow ambiguity to remain?
But you came here for another reason, and I know Salute has other questions for you as well. The Navy has deployed 5 separate autonomous vehicles. One was built in my district, the USX-1 Defiant, and that's a DARPA program. There are 2 other DARPA platforms and 2 Strategic Capability Office platforms. Is the Coast Guard at all involved in monitoring, watching, assessing the operations of these to create some learning opportunities for you all?
Ranking Member, absolutely. We take part at DIU and at DARPA. We're interconnected with many of the Joint Task Forces. We're working with Fifth Fleet over in Bahrain. So a lot of the efforts that the Navy goes through, obviously they are leaders in this, as well as many industry members are. And so we have close connection with those folks. The RAS PEO that I mentioned, their staff actively works, across, everywhere that we get the R&D Center, our Blue Technology Center of Expertise that this subcommittee helped us put in place. We are trying to capture everything that we can and field everything that we can as rapidly as possible.
Yeah, Admiral Thomas, related to Chair Ezell's question about, incorporating autonomous systems into the actual operation of a platform and the concerns that you have about the security of that. How are you going to, as much as you can, tell us, how are you going about ensuring the security of the incorporation of these systems so that they're protected?
Ranking Member, I think with everything, the great news is everything's connected today. The bad news is everything's connected today. And this is something we have to balance. We are every day under Force Design 28 rapidly prototyping new technologies, bringing them into our operational envelope, delivering those capabilities to the operator. And we are balancing that risk, the cybersecurity risk associated with that new tech, with the risk of potentially not delivering it or denying that capability from being delivered.
This contrast is powerful. The Coast Guard is forward-thinking, technologically advanced, and operationally disciplined, yet struggled with moral clarity in language. That disconnect matters because institutions must advance ethically as much as they do technologically. Otherwise, progress becomes spectacle, not leadership.
Delivered to our operators. So we iterate every single day, and we have the technical capability in Coast Guard Cyber Command, working with our colleagues in the C5I enterprise to manage this risk and find the right balance so we can deliver for our operators.
All right. Mr. Chair, if I just may, I want to congratulate the Coast Guard as well for more documented drug interdictions this year than anything the DoD has been able to demonstrate with its operations in the Caribbean. You all know how to do it. You're doing it right, and you're keeping us safe, and I appreciate that. I'll yield back.
Gentlemen, you.
This hearing wasn't simply about wording. It was about whether American institutions will clearly reject what democracy has already defined as unacceptable. When federal agencies hesitate to name what is harmful, they weaken trust and invite doubt about their commitment to national values. Accountability isn't just about enforcement. It's about clarity, courage, and moral leadership. If ambiguity remains, credibility erodes. If clarity prevails, institutions become stronger. And that's what democracy deserves. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Support our work to expose the truth.